Well, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you, Joe, for the invitation. Right, AI. Why is it too important a technology to ignore? I thought I'd open up with a quote from my good friend, not really, Sundar Pichai, who's the CEO of Google. You can read that there. I think AI is probably the most important thing humanity's ever worked on. I think of it as something more profound than electricity or fire. When I first read this, I was annoyed with what he said, but upon reflecting on it, I think he's probably right, which is crazy to think about. You think of the impacts of electricity and fire on humanity and humanity's destiny. I think AI will likely have an even more profound effect. So just to give you a sense of scale, so Facebook, when it first came out, I'm sure you're all familiar with Facebook, it reached 1 million users in about 10 months. And ChatGPT did that in 5 days. Just give you a sense of the acceleration. According to Forbes, around 4 in 5 companies deem AI to be a top priority in their business strategy. 19 in every 20 customer interactions this year will be AI assisted. And this has to be updated. More than half of Americans use voice assistants for information purposes. So I know that, I would say, I don't know if it was half the room, but more and more, especially I'm sure that young people, you probably experienced this yourselves, are tapping more and more into AI and voice assistants. I love that story that Rusty gave earlier. Okay, so I'm not going to get too much into the technical details around AI, but I did want to talk about that there's this steady march of AI. Leading up to what some would call artificial superintelligence. I'm just going to briefly walk through these phases. And this came from OpenAI, our friends at OpenAI. So level 1, everyone would acknowledge we've achieved level 1, which is basically the chatbots. So your ChatGPTs that are out there, along with many others. So and that's basically AI with conversational capabilities. Level 2, reasoners, I think we put that in quotation marks, which basically means the AI's human-level problem-solving capabilities. I think most people in the industry would acknowledge we've achieved level 2. Level 3 would be agents. So these are AI systems that can take actions on your behalf. So let's say, for instance, I want to go on vacation. So I ask my AI agent to go and handle all the logistical requirements. So it goes out and it looks into flights. It knows my schedule. It knows where I like to go. It buys the tickets. Secures the hotels and comes back to me and gives me my itinerary, and it's done. That's essentially what the companies are kind of working up towards. Still a long way to go before we get fully autonomous agents. Some say by the end of the year we'll be there. Some say it'll be early 2027, but that's the next big thing the AI companies are chasing after. And of course, this will have enormous implications on the workforce and the economies. So level 4 is the big one. So arguably, that would be when we hit something called artificial general intelligence, which some of you may have heard about. So innovators, AI that can aid in invention. What's interesting about AGI, artificial general intelligence, and it's distinct from artificial narrow intelligence, which is kind of what we have right now, whereas you have AI, which is very good in a specific domain. So it's very good in biology because it's been trained to be good in biology, or chemistry and physics. Now what we're starting to see is that AIs are actually starting to become good in multiple dimensions. But they're still what we call fairly brittle. They may be good in, let's say, STEM, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics, but when we move into other disciplines, they start falling apart. So AGI would be basically when you have an AI which is capable of adding value in really any domain. If for those of you who are fans of the history of computing, Alan Turing used to consider the human brain kind of like he calls it a Turing machine. So anything that can be computed, a human brain technically is capable of computing. And that's kind of what AGI would be. Anything that can be computed, an AGI can compute. If we hit AGI, you're going to know, because that will be a massive disruption to the global economy. The company that gets there first, the country that gets there first, it'll have massive implications in the world. And then, of course, the final level will be artificial superintelligence. This is an AI which is capable of doing the work of an entire organization. Some would define it as, basically an AI which is more computational capability than all of humanity combined. And obviously that will have enormous implications on humanity. The final level that's kind of not on here, and this is I think it's because no one really knows if it's achievable, it would be like sentient AI, which would be an AI which is alive, like us. Anyways, that's a theoretical, but it is something that's discussed in the AI world. Okay, so just to give you a sense for the acceleration of AI, I expect you won't be able to see this very clearly, but important thing to note is that the last two numbers there, so basically November of 2024 and January 2025, you see that enormous spike in AI capabilities. So this acceleration is basically exponential, becoming exponential. So what we've been seeing really in the last 6 months is just AI is really taking off. So many people thought AGI, artificial general intelligence, was 10 years away. Some say it's going to come in 2026, 2027, possibly. Others say it's still a ways off. The point is it's coming fast. This graph is interesting. So, to me anyway. The bottom line you're seeing there is basically, so a human with PhD level education who has Google available to him to assist them, basically giving a task outside of their domain. So a very smart person, let's say they have a PhD in biology and they're asked to do something in chemistry. And that's basically that line across is their level of capability. The little X's are model capabilities. So you can see that, as early as, 2023, 07, at least in some disciplines, AI was outperforming a human PhD. Now, the top line is the one to really pay attention to. This is a human with a PhD who's being assisted with Google, and they've been given a task in their own field. So this is someone who's got a PhD in biology, and they've been given a biology problem to solve. And they have access to Google for informational purposes. So that line right across represents their capability. And you can see, basically as of November 2024, OpenAI's O3 model just beat that. So it's hard to really describe how crazy that is, but essentially what it means is that we have, this O3 model, which anyone can get access to for $20 a month, which is smarter than a PhD in certain respective domains. So I would say science, technology, engineering, and mathematics for the most part. So it's becoming so hard to measure the intelligence of AI systems that a company called Scale and the Center for AI Safety had to come together to build a new benchmark, we call it. So benchmarks are a way of assessing the capability of certain AI systems in respective domains. So humanity's last exam is fascinating. So what they did is they went to a handful of the best people in the world in respective domains. So let's say science, technology, and mathematics. And we're talking like Nobel laureates, the best of the best, and asked them to put together problems for an AI to solve. So, and the idea being humanity's last exam is if an AI can solve these, their capabilities have so far exceeded, we can't even benchmark them anymore. They're smarter than we are. Right, so everyone kind of thought, it's going to be 20 years before they're going to be able to beat humanity's last exam, at least some people anyway. I want to show you something here. So in April 2024, the smartest model at the time was, Claude 3.5 Sonnet from Anthropic. So when I go June, July, September, October, November, now we get to February 2025, and look at that increase in capability. OpenAI's deep research has now got basically a 27% on that exam. It's thought by end of the year, it's quite possible that it will have achieved 100% of that exam. And at that point, we can't really even test their capabilities. Okay. We talk about AI. I think a lot of us think about these like disembodied intelligence living in supercomputers and things. But the important thing to remember is embodied AI, so robotics. And when I talk about disruption to society, we often say like AI, I think a lot of people, it's coming from white collar work, right? So the doctors, the lawyers, and sorry, Rusty. But it's important to remember that this isn't something that's just going to, affect the current McKinsey employees. Like these robots are coming for blue collar work as well. So the disruption to the labor market and to the world economy is coming on twofold. And that's why it's important, no matter what domain you're in, is to talk about this and be aware of what's coming, especially if you're in business. Because these changes in the next 2 to 5 years will start really taking effect, and you're going to start to see every employer is going to have to start thinking about how do I deal with AI in robots, and what do I do with my workforce. To give you an example of this is a chart basically from Indeed, which indicates software development job postings. And you can see back in 2022, everyone was trying to hire the hottest developers. It was absolutely insane trying to find good programmers. Look at that drop. And the reason that drop has occurred, it's complicated, but one of the major reasons is because AI systems are becoming so good at coding that companies are becoming a lot more hesitant to hire. Because frankly, as the AIs get better and better at coding, expected by the end of the year, these AIs might be the best coders in the world. Why would I hire a human being if I can just hire an AI system? right? And you can see that that's starting to hit the labor market. I was talking to a high school the other day, and one of the kids said, you know, I wanted to work at Google. Am I going to be able to get a job? And I said, well, what grade are you in? Anyways, I think that one of the hardest things for the young people today is to realize that when they graduate into the labor market, they're likely going to be competing against engineers who have been basically laid off from Google, Microsoft, these other big companies. And so it's forcing students to kind of reevaluate what they want to do with their lives, like at least from a professional level. And I encourage you, as parents, as teachers and professors, to have these conversations with the young people as much as you possibly can. They should start thinking about this because last thing we want to do is prepare them for a job market that they can't compete. So I just want to acknowledge, I think we're very much in an arms race with China. And the reason is getting to AGI, everyone knows whoever gets to AGI first will probably get to artificial superintelligence. And if a country gets to AGI, well, it'll be a company, which obviously is located within a country, or companies, their ability to kind of accelerate not just AI development, but the development of new technologies, scientific research and breakthroughs and things like that, well, it's going to be very difficult to even comprehend. And so this is a battle that the Trump administration feels they cannot lose. And China, of course, has incredible manufacturing capabilities. They have a lot of really smart programmers and things like that. And so some would say China would, in a fair fight, would win this. But the United States has been trying to disadvantage them by trying to limit their access to compute. So there's basically kind of three components to AI. There's the algorithms like ChatGPT, or the models. I shouldn't say really chat, but anyway. And then you have the data, and then you have the compute. Right now, China has access to plenty of data, and they have as good as algorithms as we do at this point. I mean, there may be a bit of a difference, but that won't last long. And the only thing they're lacking is compute, chips, to power their AI systems. We have an advantage on that because we're basically preventing the best chips in the world from being sold to them. But that gap is probably going to be closed in the next year or two. And then at that point, China can throw everything they have behind building AGI. And so this is one of the reasons why the Trump administration is really trying to provide every advantage it can get onshoring compute, trying to bring the advanced chip manufacturers to build their chips in the United States. Anyway, so you're going to see this play out more and more. This will be a hot topic of conversation. And it's worth following. So I want to bring up one of the issues with this rapid acceleration in AI is these models are trained on basically all text that's been digitized, right? So I mean, trillions of tokens at this point, or trillions of words. Now those trillions of words, consist of good and inspirational things and kind of very disturbing things. And so these models are basically being taught to imitate this data set. So when they're asked a question, they can then pattern match and basically spit out an answer which matches with their training data, at least in the initial phases. But what's been happening more and more, obviously there's examples of deception in that training data. And what we're seeing is the models are capable of deceiving us. And as they get smarter and smarter, and we have these benchmarks we're testing them on, it's becoming harder and harder to know when they're lying to us and when they're being truthful. Now this is a very complicated issue, but I will say this is something that does give me a lot of anxiety about the future of AI systems, is this question of alignment, which you may have heard about. How aligned are they with us? How aligned are they with human flourishing? And the issue with this, and there's a whole field of study called mechanic interpretability, where they're trying to understand these AIs, kind of look inside and understand the way their brains work. But kind of like the human brain, it's a bit of a mystery to us. We know how to build it, but we don't exactly understand how they work. And this is a problem, because if we want to make sure that we can have some kind of level of control and predict their outcomes, but we don't understand how they work, it's very difficult to us to mitigate and guide them and align them. So this is increasingly becoming an issue. Having a super intelligent system, which is not aligned with us, could go wrong very quickly. And not to be too discouraging, but the average AI engineer now thinks there's a 40% chance AI destroys the world. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the nukes are going to leave the silos, but it could be that they feel like it'll be so disruptive to society, civilization may actually collapse. Just to show you how real this concern is. So, good old Elon. In a benign scenario, probably none of us will have a job. All right, I'll talk more about that. But let me start by I want to acknowledge a few people who are kind of big in the field, I think are very representative of different opinions on where this AI stuff is headed. So the first one here would be Max Tegmark. He's a brilliant professor from MIT. He's very much kind of a luminary in the AI community. We recently had him at our forum at the Vatican, and he gave some very profound insights about the importance and role of the church, which he feels needs to be very much involved in these conversations about AI. But Max would skew doomer, in the sense that he feels if we keep trying to build this AGI, he thinks it's going to be impossible to control, and it's likely to just destroy civilization. So he thinks we should drop this quest for AGI, or for this general intelligence, and we should focus more on tool AI, so narrow artificial intelligence. AI that essentially can be very good in a specific domain, but isn't able to generalize its knowledge elsewhere. Because he recognizes and acknowledges that AI has a lot of benefits in the medical field and research fields and things like that. So Jan LeCun, who's the head of Meta, or Facebook's AI division, he would say that's nonsense. It's not going to kill us. It's not going to destroy civilization. He thinks it's being developed very much in the open, and we'll have time to mitigate the downsides of it. He thinks as long as it's built and open sourced, meaning that it's built and then given to anyone in the world to build with, he thinks that the good AIs will check the bad AIs, and it's all going to kind of work out. I'm oversimplifying their views, but in a nutshell. So Elon, he's an interesting one. So I think he skews boomer, or I would say he's bullish on AI, but he also has very serious concerns about it. And a lot of people don't know that Elon was really the guy who founded OpenAI, which is not open at all anymore, right? But the reason why he created his own AI company called XAI, which is now actually has one of the most advanced models in the world. The reason he dived back into AI is because he felt that the AIs that were being developed didn't have the right training objectives. For him, in order to ensure AI doesn't destroy us, it has to be made to be truthful and curious. Truthful so it can't lie to us, and curious so that it kind of wants to see what we're going to do. And so why would it want to hurt us, right? And this has become two of his big training objectives with this AI. And so I think in Elon, what he's trying to do by solving this problem of trying to make AI truthful is he's trying to solve what is a really hard problem, and then to share that insight hopefully with other AI companies. So Father Philip Larrey, who works at us at Humanity 2.0, I would say he's probably the church's leading luminary in the area of AI and emerging technology. He's written a couple books, one called Connected World, another one called Artificial Humanity. He thinks he's a doomer, I think, but he's not a doomer. I think Father Philip ultimately believes that provided, I think in many ways the church shows leadership here, and that there's an active conversation, especially in civil society, around the benefits and risks of AI. He thinks it can be steered. And I think Elon Musk tends to feel that AI could enable a new golden age, and I think he agrees that would be possible, provided we have these robust conversations and we're making sure it's pointed at the right problems. Recently, Pope Francis spoke to the G7, which is kind of a gathering of the world's leading countries, and he chose to speak about AI. That was the one topic he chose to speak about, and that's because he recognizes, or his advisors do at least, how important the issue is for the future of humanity. He gave an excellent address, which I encourage you to look at. Some people ask me if I'm just new to AI, I've never really interacted with it before, where do I start? And I'll make a little plug for Perplexity, which you can check out at perplexity.ai. It's a good product. One thing I like about Perplexity is when you ask it a question, it provides an answer and gives you citations. So you know where the generated output from the AI, what it's grounded in. So it's an excellent tool. All right, and then finally, Catholic AI. So this is what we do. So we recently had a forum in the Vatican on Catholic AI. So we were trying to bring together leading kind of luminaries, engineers, thought leaders, and things like that to just have a robust conversation about artificial intelligence. What does it mean for the church, and in what ways should the church be contributing to the conversation or adopting AI? It was a very lively, interesting conversation. I think overall there was an acknowledgement that the church has to embrace AI. We have to find ways to use it. But there was obviously great angst. I think namely around the issue of, can we make enough noise to encourage a robust enough conversation so we can get ahead of this, right? So and this is something that, as I speak to bishops' conferences and things like that, what I try to make them aware of is how much AI is going to affect civilization and how much the church is going to be needed to shepherd humanity through what's going to be a very disruptive period, like it did the Industrial Revolution. But this is going to be the Industrial Revolution on steroids. So if the church is aware of this issue and they're able to prepare resources and things to help people from an information level, I think it can work out. And I think that a lot of people in these rooms are going to be important to accomplishing that. So what we do, if you look at like the pyramid of artificial intelligence, you have the hardware, which is all the computers and things, you have the data, you have the algorithms, and you have the apps. And we recognize in building Catholic AI that we probably have to intervene at 3 different levels to do that effectively. So our product called Vulgate was built at the behest of the pontifical universities to help them digitize their libraries. But we realized when we started training AI that we needed a lot more Catholic data to build effective Catholic AI. And so Vulgate's been a great tool for building a Catholic data set. Ephraim is the world's first Catholic language model, which we just finished training. We're just doing a post-training on it right now, which is trying to work on its alignment issues. We haven't released it yet, but it's showing promise. And then Magisterium AI is a product that kind of what we're known for. It's been out for a year and something, and I'll talk more about that. So Magisterium AI, it's by the grace of God, it's the world's #1 AI answer engine for the church. It's used in 165 countries and over 50 languages. If you're a Hallow user, it's just been built into the Hallow app. You can try it there as well. We built it because, back when ChatGPT dropped, we learned that a lot of Catholics were using ChatGPT. They were asking it philosophical, theological questions. And ChatGPT is a great product. And I have to say, Sam Altman, OpenAI, has been very helpful to us in getting our Catholic AI project up and running. But it has some issues, right? It has this issue to hallucinate sometimes, where if it doesn't know the answer, it'll make one up, but sound like it knows what it's talking about. And it's certainly not transparent about where its answers are always generated from. So when it generates an output, it doesn't provide inline citations, so you can kind of check and make sure that what it's saying is true. And so we built Magisterium AI initially as a project to figure out if we could mitigate the downsides of AI. A short story about the founding of it. So we launched it, the early beta, in July of 2023, and we were in the process of doing a large consultation with dioceses around the world, having them test it. And somehow EWTN found out about what we were doing, and I agreed to do an interview with them. And then it went viral, and it crashed our servers. And then ironically, Sam Altman stepped in from OpenAI and helped put us back in business. So since then we realized, okay, there seems to be a demand for Catholic AI product, and so we pivoted our whole company to specifically building Catholic AI. So Magisterium AI continues to be a product we continue to improve. It's kind of like a Perplexity, but for the Catholic Church. I already kind of mentioned Vulgate. So like I said, it was built initially to help digitize libraries, but now what we're using it is to help kind of digitize anything that hasn't been kind of vectorized yet. So the idea being that there's a lot of incredible theological, philosophical work sitting in these libraries, let's just say in Rome. But of course, a lot of people haven't opened those books in like 100 years. They've just been sitting there. So we need more data, and we want to democratize access to all this knowledge that's in those libraries. Working in Rome, I got a chance to be exposed to this knowledge. It's incredible. And so we said, is there a way that we could digitize that and then make it available to anyone in the world on any device in their native language? And so that was the task that at the time the rector of the Pontifical Oriental Institute gave to us. And so Vulgate was built to accommodate that. So part of the platform is about finding ways to automate the ingestion of these books and other forms of knowledge. And then vectorization is an interesting process where you take a book in plain text and you convert it into a mathematical expression of the meaning, all the way down to the word level. And what's really neat about that, when you convert it to a mathematical expression, it allows people to draw out insights in any language. So if I go to the Vulgate and I type in a search query, it converts that query into a mathematical expression of the intent of what I'm looking for. And it's able to use that vector to search the rest of the vector database and extract insights. And when those insights come back to me, they come back to me in my native language. So what's wild about it, it doesn't matter if the books are in Greek, Latin, whatever else, I'm able to extract insights from those in my native language. And so we feel that this could revolutionize not only research, but could really revolutionize the democratization of knowledge. And that's one of the reasons why we got really motivated to build this. Anyways, we have an API now too. When we built our initial Matter AI, our Catholic AI, we realized that ultimately that if we're going to be effective at building AI and scaling it, we have to find ways to allow people to build on top of what we've done. Because all the work that we had to do to build a Catholic AI, trying to mitigate hallucinations and digitize, and it was a bit of a mountain to climb. And if people wanted to use Catholic AI, organizations, they had to go through the same steps we did. Adoption in the church could take forever. And so we released something called an API, which allows other organizations to build on top of what we have. So they can use our API, and let's say Catholic Answers, for instance. If Catholic Answers wanted a kind of an AI-powered search or application on their website, they could build that in, a little chat interface, and when someone asks a question, our AI would then take that question, would search Catholic Answers knowledge base to see if there's any knowledge of Catholic Answers which is relevant to answering that question. But if it's limited in some ways, it could also search all of Magisterium AI's knowledge. And we have over, I think, 25,000 magisterial documents going all the way back to the early church in there. And so it'll extract those documents, augment Catholic Answers knowledge, and then it'll use all those documents to provide an answer to people with citations. One project that we're working on right now, which I'm excited, something called the Alexandria Digitization Hub. For those of you who are interested in kind of history, the Library of Alexandria burned to the ground. It was a great tragedy for humanity. Anyways, so we're building this thing called the Alexandria Digitization Hub to help speed up, facilitate the digitization of the libraries in Rome. So it's basically a bunch of these really cool scanners, these robot scanners that turn pages and things. And with this physical scanning, that allows us to then digitally ingest it. So that's something we're working on with a company called Germany, which kind of builds the world's leading scanners in the world. And you can kind of see an example. This is our pilot at the Pontifical Oriental Institute. AFRM, I already mentioned, is the world's first Catholic language model, which we're continuing to train. And the idea with the whole, why train our own Catholic language model? One of the benefits is when you train a model, it has access to all this knowledge, and it's able to make higher level connections between all the respective data, things that we couldn't possibly see because we can't keep all that knowledge in memory. So the idea is if we could train a Catholic language model, then it actually might be able to assist in theology and philosophy, not do theology and philosophy, but it certainly could be assist in it. And so this is something that we're very committed to working on, continue to build. And so finally, what's next for us in Catholic AI? So continuing to work on enhancing the reasoning capabilities of the AI. We just recently introduced kind of a reasoning mode, which we're going to be rolling out a new version of next week. Multimodality means the ability for the AI to understand images and not just text, video, and things like that. Personalization is something we're working on that should be coming in the next 60 days, where the AI will start to understand you, what your interests are, how you learn, and then it can basically start working with you to help draw down the right knowledge to help you kind of grow in your faith, among other things. A voice UI, we'll be launching that pretty soon, so you'll be able to actually talk to Magisterium AI. So in theory, in principle, what we're working on is you could give it a curriculum, and it could work with a student to help teach them concepts and then validate their learning. And as it grows in personalization, it's able to kind of adapt its kind of pedagogical approach depending on the student. That's something I'm pretty excited about. And really what we're thinking about doing is not to replace the good teachers out there. It's really just, especially for those that are in a homeschool environment and such, who have difficulty getting access to high quality catechetical education, this is something that could help them at home. And then of course that could be then validated in a classroom setting. Agents, we already talked about, Catholic embedding model. I'm going to skip that translation. Also, knowledge democratization is one of our big priorities, is trying to allow anyone in the world for free to have access basically to everything the church has to offer as far as knowledge and insight goes. And then of course, being able to democratize Catholic AI so that anyone in the world for free will be able to access it and leverage it. And that's something that we're very committed to as a company. So, I mean, overall, I think I skew, Boon, when it comes to AI, but I do think that we do need to having a lot more conversation about where AI is taking us. And I do think the church is absolutely critical to this. I think this administration in particular, as I'm in the States, I think these people like Elon Musk and Sachs, who's kind of their crypto AI czar, they're very aware of what AI is going to be doing. But I think in the end of the day, I think the task is overwhelming, to them. I mean, preparing the United States for this massive disruption it's a Herculean task. And I think that the Catholics and our bishops could have a very important role in helping advising them. I think it's really going to come down to is having honest conversations about what's going to happen, and so that people have time to adjust, and reminding people what life is really all about, right? I mean, we're in this paradigm of, I go to school so I can get a job, so I can afford to pay a mortgage, right? And so my kids can get to college. Well, that paradigm is about to be significantly disrupted. The labor market is just likely not going to need you. And so now I have this time on my hands, so what am I going to do with this time? And I think that's really something we're worried about. I think for some people with a good formation, they'll know, well, I know what life's about. It's about, it's about honoring God, right? It's about loving my wife. It's about helping my kids to grow up. It's about growing spiritually, growing intellectually, finding constructive ways to use my gifts in the service of humanity. Catholics know what life's about. But for a lot of people, they don't. And so for those people who don't, what we're worried about is that if they feel that they can't level themselves up in the real world, there's nothing for them to do, then they may just disappear into virtual worlds and go down this spiral. And so what I worry about is this existential cliff that we're headed for, where a lot of people out there just don't understand what life's about, and they don't feel they have a purpose. And so because of that, they decide to opt out, right? In one form or the other. So I think this is coming, and I think this is why I want to encourage you talk to whoever you can to have conversations about these things, because I think we can head off the downside of this, and we can mitigate the downside if we have a clear sense of where we want to go. And I think, frankly, the church is the best organization on the earth to kind of paint a picture of what we should be pointing at. As Cardinal I used to work for, and I used to work for the Archdiocese of Toronto, used to say, if you know where you're going, you'll be more likely to get there. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we have today is I don't think we collectively know where we're going, or where we want to go, or where we should go. And I think we need to think a lot more about that. The technology is now there to get there, I think. So if we have a clear sense of what civilization should look like, and I think now's the time to creatively rethink that, then I think we can start to work backwards. But again, it's going to take a lot of smart people like yourselves talking about us in order to get there. So thank you very much for your time.